From Portland International Raceway, Joe Samaniego, and we have Jackson Lambros from Dive Bomb Motorsports. Overall, it's going to be, I think, a fun day, but I think the two words that come to mind, hot and heavy. That describes the action on the track and the weather today and tomorrow. Let's start with the action on the track and qualifying. Pato O'Ward will be leading the field, but it was Christian Lundgaard that took the pole, but he got that sixth place penalty. Yesterday, I know Nicole and I were talking about how Lundgaard was very fast. Could some of that information go help Pato O'Ward? Do you think maybe McLaren was playing that game at all? Do you think, like Pato said, the car just came better and better as the track got hotter?
I think Christian made it really clear, and I believe you guys at home are going to hear this presser in just a few minutes' time, but it feels like there's a very selfish isn't the right word, but these guys are running their own race in Aero McLaren. You look at some of the smaller teams, Dale Coyne, Prema, there's a lot of intricacies in sharing of setup sheets, strategy plans, stuff like that. I don't know what the papaya rules apply for when you're on this side of the pond. It seems like, though, it's an all-for-yourself driving mentality, both behind the wheel and on the stands.
Now, one of the things that Pato was talking about was the car got better and better, and we know it got drastically warmer and warmer. The temperatures got up to the high 80s here. Tomorrow it's going to be even hotter. Do you think that's going to give Pato sort of that trend continuing of the car's going to get better, or is there a limit where gets too hot and then somebody else might have a car that's better and Pato might be at a disadvantage?
I think grip in general reaches that tipping point. We saw guys in the 58s, even on alternates, a lot of guys were struggling to get out of the 59s in that final 25-minute final practice warm-up, if you will. So it gets to a point where, you know, even if we're running high 80s, guys are struggling. That grip starts to go away. You're managing tire heat. You're trying to make sure your pressures are optimal because you're asking so much more. This is such a high load track, too, Joe. You're always turning. There's always some kind of force being applied to the tires. So that's going to be another absolutely crucial part of managing this race tomorrow when, again, even now it feels like such a big maybe on what that temp is going to be like come race time. But we're anticipating 5-10 degrees Fahrenheit hotter at least. And from what I've heard from a lot of the drivers, it's going to really, really potentially mix things up.
And you bring up a good point. You're almost always turning. It's really just that front straightaway, which is a drag strip. The back stretch is a curve. The S's, and of course the fearsome Shelton chicane, which is hard on the brakes, some tight corners. For Alex Palou, he is starting fifth. So he has 4 cars ahead of him. The rest of the field, we've seen them been spread out, so they're not exactly double file. Because if my memory is correct, he will be on the outside coming into the corner.
I think so.
But considering it's spread out, do you think he's going to be extra cautious because it's trouble behind him, or even somebody ahead of him, and he just got to be on his toes? He's
got to be, and I think there was an anticipation where I think at worst he had, front 2-row pace, maybe third or higher. It definitely seemed that way through the first opening 2 practice sessions, but I mean, it's definitely going to be survival mode for those first couple of corners. It absolutely has to be, because if you are even working with a bended wing or some tire puncture and you're going to the back of the field, that's potentially major points coming to Pato O'Ward, who, by the way, I think is going to be really in kind of damage control mode tomorrow. He's opting to go on primaries like a lot of the guys at the front of the field, but I think he's really going to try and take this lead and run away with it, or really just deal with the cards he's got. If he's going to run if he comes out of Sheldon in P2, I think he's going to defend, but not do a lot of aggression to really hold that spot.
It's going to be very interesting. Alongside him, Felix Rosenquist, former teammate. The second row, very interesting. You got Will Power, David Malukas, all the rumors going on. In fact, Nicole and I were talking about appears to be a social media post with Malukas and Newgarden. Thoughts on that? Do you feel like Will is going to have a chip on his shoulder, like, I really want to outbreak David Malukas in this first corner?
No, because even you turn the dial back to last year, there was a conversation between Will and a Foyt driver, Santino Ferrucci, and I argue that a similar conversation probably happened tonight, either between the front row or between Dave and Will, of, hey, we're going to break, and whoever ends up being the first, I'm not going to fight you too hard on it, but we're not going to go for each other's throat here. We got 110 laps ahead of us. None of us want our race to end on lap 1. But, I mean, you go back to the way this story is kind of written itself this weekend, right? The potential, man, in sponsorship that we've normally seen with Team Penske running right alongside the best guy, the glue guy for Team Penske this season. So I don't think this is going to be a make or break drive, and I think some of this is a lot more shallow than maybe we've been looking. You look at Joseph Newgarden and David Malukas, by nature, they are two of the most media-friendly guys in the paddock. Of course, you're going to want to have them doing content. But that could be building synergy for something else, right? We'll just have to wait and see. And, you know, we're going to have to be having this conversation again in 3 months and try and figure out how big the next 110 laps tomorrow really played out in making that decision.
110 laps for Team Penske. Will Power, he would love to get that first win of the year. Joseph Newgarden, fast in qualifying, but of course a 6th-place grid penalty. Scott McLaughlin qualified 13th. Of course, he's going to move up to, I believe, 12th with Newgarden's penalty. Only twice we've seen the winner come out of the top 10 here. Takuma Sato, Mark Blundell. Do you think we could potentially see anybody from outside the top 10 get a win?
If we have a weird kind of 2018 race, I think absolutely, or 2019 race, excuse me, if something has that level of chaos, for sure. And it feels like you're adding the right ingredients to that pot right now with the heat, how much it still feels like an unknown for strategy, and how this compound is really going to act in the long run. A lot of guys really, really red flag heavy set of practice sessions. This final practice was one of the few instances where guys were able to get some fairly long run data in, some fairly good long run data in. But I think it is really going to come down to, I think Sheldon Chicane, lap 1, really is going to end up being that first domino. And if not, it's got to be a cautions breed cautions kind of deal where you got guys throwing haymakers into the chicane. But again, you're getting to that point where the championship is starting to wind down. I'm not sure. I think guys are going to be a lot less fangs out. We still don't have a championship decided. You go back and see that kind of crazy fangs out races. Laguna Seca 23. We already had Palou as the champion, and that's when we were going all out, like 8 cautions that race. So I could say this, and we're going to have 10 cautions tomorrow. Joe, I don't know. Only one way to find out.
Now, if we get a bunch of cautions, if you're in the back, I almost feel like that could be helpful. For Andretti Global, it just didn't seem like, I mean, Marcus Ericsson got in the top 10, but Colton Herta started further back. Kyle Kirkwood, who's usually really good at this track, especially when he was running in the Indy ladder system, not exactly a good qualifying. Do you think a chaotic race could help them out, or do they still need like the front runners really to have bad luck?
Well, first of all, let's give those flowers to Marcus Ericsson, right? Been a sophomore year where he was really hoping to turn things around and has not been the season he's wanted so far, and he's really proved himself this weekend at a track he himself has struggled at historically. So I mean, talking to Kyle Kirkwood post-practice here a couple hours ago, he seems as confused as everybody else as to why they can or can't find pace, but they like their opportunities. And he's clearly sticking to his guns because he'll be rolling off in a primary heavy back half of this grid on alternates. So he's clearly going to try and charge forward.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens tomorrow. And, of course, a special grid live pre-race, noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific. It will be covering the INDYCAR race, plus, of course, NASCAR at Watkins Glen. Then we'll wrap it all up later in the afternoon, plus the updated grid ranking. For Jackson, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.